Let me describe something that's been happening to you lately. Someone in your life, someone you've known for years, has started acting off around you. Maybe they got distant without explanation. Maybe they picked a fight over something that wasn't the real thing. Maybe they looked at you differently, like something about you unsettled them and they couldn't name it. And the wildest part, you didn't do anything. You've been sitting with that. And here's the thing I need you to understand before we go any further. What's been set in motion inside you cannot be undone. You already know this somewhere. That's why this feeling doesn't go away. That's why you can't explain it to the people around you. That's why even the relationships that are supposed to be easy have started to feel like they require translation. You haven't broken anything. You haven't made a mistake. But something in you has crossed a threshold that you cannot step back over. And the people around you, they felt it before you could name it. And if you misread what's happening right now, you could damage relationships that were never meant to end. That's why this matters, not just as an explanation, as a map. Because what's unfolding around you has a very specific shape, and once you understand it, you'll never be blindsided by any of it again. In the next 25 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what is happening to the people around you, and why, using what neuroscience, developmental psychology, and every serious tradition of inner transformation agree on. I'm going to walk you through the 7 specific behaviors you are seeing from others right now, what each one actually means, and what it tells you about where you are in your own evolution. And I'm going to give you a framework that ends the confusion, so you stop reading their reactions as things you caused and start reading them as signals you've stepped into. When you begin to change at the level of your soul, the people wired to you feel it in their nervous system before they can think a single thought about it. They're not acting strange because something is wrong. They're acting strange because something is different. And different at this level changes everything. Let me start with the word Sophia, because it matters more than it seems. Sophia is the ancient Greek word for wisdom, not information you studied, not knowledge you accumulated. Wisdom, the kind that comes from having been broken open, from having lost something real, from having lived through something that permanently changed how you see and move through the world. In the study of consciousness evolution and developmental psychology, the Sophia Stage describes a specific phase where your baseline way of being, the operating system you've been running since childhood, undergoes what researchers would call a deep nervous system and identity recalibration. Think of it like this. It's like your inner thermostat changed, and the people who were comfortable around the old temperature don't know how to stand near you anymore. Not because you became hot, because you became different, and different is disorienting before it becomes beautiful. Before this phase, most people operate from what developmental psychologists call the conditioned self. I want you to feel what that actually means. The version of you who laughed to keep the peace, the version who explained too much, the version who monitored the room before speaking, who edited yourself before anyone asked. That's the conditioned self, the operating system assembled by your environment, your family, your earliest wounds, your learned strategies for staying safe, your need to be chosen. In the Sophia stage, that operating system starts to come apart, not because you're breaking down, because something more coherent, more true, and far more aligned with who you actually are is forming underneath it. And here's what makes this critical for your relationships. Human beings respond to each other's nervous system state before they respond to words. Before your friend processes a single thought about you, their body has already read you. Before your partner finds the language for why things feel different, their nervous system has already registered the change. This is not metaphor. This is the documented science of co-regulation, and it explains everything. For the part of you wondering whether there's anything real underneath this, yes, more than most people realize. Here's what actually happens physiologically during deep inner transformation. First, your nervous system regulation changes at baseline. People doing serious inner work, integrating old wounds, dissolving ego-protective patterns, rewiring shame responses, show measurable changes in parasympathetic nervous system activity. They are calmer at rest, more present, less reactive. Their baseline has shifted. Now here's where it becomes important for your relationships. Human nervous systems are co-regulatory. This is documented biology. We evolved to read each other's internal states through micro-expressions, vocal tone, posture, breath patterns. and we automatically begin to mirror the nervous system state of whoever we are near. And here's what that means in practice. You can walk into a room and shift its emotional temperature without saying a single word. That's not a metaphor. That is the literal effect of a regulated nervous system in an unregulated room. Some people feel that shift as soothing. They move toward it. They feel safe without knowing why. Others, particularly those with high unresolved anxiety or unconscious control patterns, feel it as a threat. Your regulation makes their dysregulation visible. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your peace shows them their unrest. Your stillness holds up a mirror to their noise. And some people would rather push the mirror away than look at what it's showing them. That's not cruelty, that's fear, and it is completely, entirely human. The more you stop reacting, the more some people around you will escalate. Your non-reactivity reads as power to some. To others, particularly those used to being able to provoke you, it reads as a threat. Keep that in mind. It will explain everything you're about to see in the 7 behaviors. The second thing that shifts, your communication patterns change. You stop performing. You stop laughing at things that aren't funny to you. You stop shrinking your presence so others feel comfortable. To the people around you who were built around the old version, these small changes feel enormous, and they can feel like a withdrawal of something they depended on. That's when the behaviors start. And I want to warn you before we go in. One of these 7 is happening in your closest relationships right now, and you've probably been misreading it as love. That's behavior 4. Stay with me. 7 behaviors. I'm going to move through each one with intention, because understanding the why transforms every single one of these from a wound into a signal. Someone you've known for years starts pulling back, fewer texts, canceled plans. They say they're fine when you ask, but the temperature between you has changed and you both know it. Here's what's actually happening. You have stopped being the person they built their relationship with, not because you've become worse, because you've become different. The old dynamic, which often depended on you being more agreeable, more available, more willing to absorb without reciprocating, no longer holds its shape. They don't have the self-awareness to say, "You've shifted and I don't know how to relate to the new version of you." So instead of saying it, they drift. And here's the trap, pay close attention. The more you try to chase the old dynamic, the more it slips. Every attempt to re-earn the old closeness signals that you're still available to be managed. And that keeps you stuck in a negotiation with someone who has already decided they're not sure they can follow you. Let them process their adjustment. Your job is not to make yourself smaller so the distance feels less dramatic. This one is harder to sit with. Someone in your life starts picking fights, irritated for no apparent reason, critical of small things, making jabs that are disguised as jokes. Here's the psychology. When someone steps into their authentic power, when they stop apologizing for their presence and start occupying space without justification, people who relied on them being smaller feel threatened, not consciously, deep in the survival brain. Your growth, without a single word, broadcasts something that destabilizes them. I no longer need your validation. I no longer shrink for your comfort. I no longer make myself small so you can feel large. For someone whose identity was built on keeping you in a particular role, that reads as an act of aggression. So they start pushing, testing whether you'll collapse back into the old pattern. Up arrow V30 universal weight adds a feeling of cosmic law, makes the behavior feel inevitable, not personal, reduces viewers' pain response, and increases insight. And here's what's important to understand about what happens next. When a power dynamic shifts, it doesn't stabilize quietly. There's a period of adjustment, and during that period, things often escalate before they resolve. That's not a sign you're doing it wrong. That's what it looks like when an old structure resists a new reality. Not everything happening around you is difficult. Some of it is extraordinary. Strangers open up to you in checkout lines. Children and animals are unusually calm around you. People you barely know ask your advice on deeply personal things. Something has shifted in how your presence lands. Here's why. Your internal coherence, the alignment between what you think, feel, say, and do, is something other nervous systems can register. Most people are living with enormous internal fragmentation. Being near someone who is genuinely integrated, who doesn't need anything from you, who isn't performing, it's like stepping into a room where someone turned on a warm light. But here's the thing about light. Light doesn't just attract, it also exposes. The same presence that draws wounded people toward healing draws threaten people toward resistance. And if you've noticed this magnetism rising in you, if more people are suddenly opening up, suddenly curious, suddenly drawn, there's a shadow side to that shift you need to understand. Because it's the exact reason certain people turn cold when you get calm. That's what we're walking into right now. This is the one I want you to pay the most careful attention to. Because it's the most confusing, and it's happening in your closest relationships. Someone close to you, a parent, a sibling, a best friend, starts expressing concern. Are you okay? You seem different. I'm worried about you. Are you sure this is healthy? And it feels like love, so you engage, you try to explain, you try to reassure them. And somehow the more you explain, the more the concern intensifies. Now I want to say this carefully. Sometimes it really is genuine care. Sometimes the people who love you most are simply adjusting to a change they didn't choose and weren't prepared for. That deserves patience and real compassion. But here's the distinction that changes everything. When concern comes with pressure to go back, when it's accompanied by guilt, by nostalgia for who you were, by subtle suggestions that you were better before, that is not only care. That is the fear of someone who doesn't know who they will be in relationship to the new version of you. They are afraid of what your evolution says about the life they've chosen, afraid that if you keep growing, you will outgrow the world they live in. And what reads as worry is actually the sound of someone trying to pull you back to a size they can manage. And here's the thing that will hit close. If you've noticed yourself over-explaining in these moments, justifying your growth to people who haven't asked a real question, that's your old identity trying to earn safety. You don't owe anyone an explanation for becoming more of yourself. People who previously had little interest in you start becoming very curious. What are you doing differently? Why do you seem so settled? How are you this calm about things that would have wrecked you before? Here's how to read this correctly. You're not being admired, you're being decoded. They sense something in you that their nervous system can detect, but their mind can't yet categorize. Some will follow that thread into their own transformation. Some will get to the edge of it and pull back. Your job is not to recruit. Your job is to embody. But this curiosity, from people who never paid you this kind of attention before, that is one of the clearest external confirmations that your internal shift is real and it is radiating. People from your past start surfacing. Someone you haven't heard from in years sends a message out of nowhere. I've been thinking about you. Something told me to check in. They can't explain the pull, they just felt it. Whether you explain this through the psychology of unconscious social attunement or through something more layered than that, the effect is the same. The people who are still wired to your emotional imprint feel when it changes. Growth changes who has access to you. Some of these reconnections carry something real, a closure, a message, a new chapter of something unfinished. Others are nostalgic reaches toward the version of you that no longer exists. Trust your discernment. Not every echo is meant to become a conversation. And then often in the deepest, loneliest stretch of the transition, something extraordinary happens. Someone new appears, and within the first real conversation, it feels like you've known them your entire life. There's a recognition, a resonance, a feeling of where have you been? These relationships don't require effort to be real. They don't need you to perform or manage or explain yourself. They simply fit at the level of who you actually are now, not who you used to be. Here's what shifts in these connections. When your identity stabilizes, your relationships stop being negotiations. You stop bargaining with yourself about how much of yourself you're allowed to show. And the people who appear at this stage, they don't require that bargaining. They met the real version first. Every relationship that fell away was clearing space for this. Every distancing, every conflict, every lonely evening, it was making room. You weren't being abandoned, you were being curated. The relationships on the other side of this transition are not replacements for what you lost. They are arrivals that were only possible because of it. I want to stay here for a moment, because the hardest part of all of this for most people isn't the aggression or the criticism. It's the loneliness. It's being in a room full of people who love you and feeling like no one can actually see you. It's missing the version of yourself who could participate in conversations that now feel hollow, who could enjoy things that now feel empty. That grief is real, the loss is real, and you're allowed to mourn it without making it mean that your awakening was a mistake. Awakening is not always light and expansion. Sometimes it is the discomfort of being between two worlds, too awake for the old one, not yet arrived in the new one. Mystics across traditions call this the liminal space, the chrysalis, where what was solid has dissolved and what's forming isn't yet visible. The loneliness of the Sophia stage is not the loneliness of being unwanted. It's the loneliness of having outgrown your old life before you've finished building the new one. And there's one more thing I need to name, because it happens to almost everyone in this stage. The people who can't follow you will sometimes try to convince you that your growth is arrogance. This isn't a reason to cut everyone off, it's a reason to stop abandoning yourself, that your boundaries are coldness, that your peace is distance, that your clarity is judgment. It isn't. That is the vocabulary of people who are watching you outgrow the space they needed you to stay in. You don't have to argue with it, you just have to recognize it for what it is. Now I need to talk about the most dangerous move you can make in the Sophia stage. Collapsing back. Because when the distancing hurts, when the criticism stings, when the loneliness is heavy, the primal instinct is to go back to the old version of yourself, to laugh at things you don't find funny, to shrink your presence again, to stop saying what you actually mean, to perform the old role because the old role kept the peace. You cannot undo a real awakening. You can only delay it, and every delay costs you years of your actual life. And here's the part nobody says. The real tragedy isn't that you shrink, it's that you start resenting the people you shrank for. You perform the old role, you bite your tongue, you make yourself manageable again, and then slowly, quietly, you begin to hold it against the people whose comfort you chose over your own becoming. That resentment poisons relationships that didn't need to be sacrificed. It just needed you to stay in them as yourself. When you hold your ground, not aggressively, not coldly, but clearly, you give people the chance to meet the real version of you. When you collapse, you take that chance away from both of you. Nobody wins when you perform a smaller life. Principle 1, stay rooted, not rigid. There's a difference between holding your ground and building a wall. Some of the people reacting to you right now are worth waiting for. They're not asleep, they're adjusting to a change they didn't choose and weren't prepared for. Stay soft inside your rootedness, be willing to be real with them, but don't use their discomfort as a reason to uproot yourself. Principle 2, grieve the old without cursing it. Let yourself mourn what's falling away, that's not weakness, and while you're mourning, hold compassion for yourself and for the people who can't follow you yet. They are not villains in your story. They are people operating from the level of consciousness they currently have access to, as you once did. Principle 3, become the environment. Stop trying to change the people around you. Become someone whose environment does the work. Show up calm, show up present, show up fully as yourself, not as a performance, as a lived reality. Let the people around you feel what it is like to be near someone who has chosen themselves. Some will move toward it, some will move away, but the ones who move toward it, those are your people. Stop trying to be understood, start being clear. Understanding is something other people give you. Clarity is something you give yourself. And when you are clear about what you value, about what you'll accept, about who you are now, the right people understand without being convinced. Rapid fire, count in your head how many of these land. You feel like you're watching your old life from the outside, familiar, but no longer yours. You've lost interest in conversations that used to feel normal, not judgment, they just feel hollow. Your tolerance for inauthenticity has dropped to near zero. You sense performance before a word is said. You're sleeping differently, deeper than ever, or in vivid, fragmented cycles. You feel a pull towards solitude that feels like a need, not loneliness. Something keeps reaching in you toward a purpose you can feel, but haven't fully named. The old fears have quieted. A new, deeper one has taken their place, the fear of never living the life you actually came here for. You don't feel lost. You feel relocated. You don't feel lonely. You feel selective. 5 or more. You're in it deep in the Sophia stage. And what's happening around you is not a crisis. At the start of this video, I asked you why everyone around you is acting so strange. Now you know. They're not acting strange. They're responding to a signal you didn't know you were broadcasting, a signal that says something fundamental has shifted in this person, something real, something permanent. The distancing, the aggression, the magnetism, the concern that was really fear, the old faces resurfacing, the new ones arriving, all of it is the world's response to the fact that you are no longer exactly who you were. And you know what that means. The Sophia Stage is not a burden you're carrying. It is the threshold you have been walking toward your entire life. Every wound that cracked you open, every ending that hollowed you out, every night where you felt too much and understood too little. All of it was preparation. The people who stay will be the ones meant to walk beside you in the life that's being born. The people who leave will have given you the space to finally live it. Neither is a loss, both are the path. You're not losing your life, you're shedding the version that couldn't carry the one that's coming. The world isn't turning against you, it's recalibrating to who you've become. Stay rooted, stay open, keep going. One question for you in the comments. Which behavior hit you hardest, distncing or aggression? Just type the word. I read every single one. And if this video found someone today who needed a name for what they've been going through, share it with them. That share might be the thing that changes how they see everything. There's a video right there that goes into what comes after this, what purpose and relationships look like on the other side of the Sophia Stage. I'll see you there.